I can vividly remember being so worried about moving up a year. I ended up in tears over it. And no, it wasn't going into one of the stressful or important exam years, not even going from primary to high school. It was just as a little kid at primary school, and I got myself all in tears about the prospect of moving up from the infants to the juniors. And that would be like moving from like year 3 to year 4 over here in Australia. And it sounds crazy now, but that change in stage, infants to juniors, had me all worried that the work was suddenly going to get loads harder and I'd suddenly feel out of my depth and unable to cope with all that new big kids work. Now luckily my mum must have done a pretty good job of talking it through with me and making me feel better, because I don't remember ever having had such a strong sort of reaction to a change in year group as I did over that once. Although certainly a few start of a new year butterflies definitely crept in from time to time. But those sorts of feelings can come up at any point. Those nerves and anxiety, particularly when there's a notable up-leveling in the labelling or the events of a particular year group. For example, moving from middle to high school or into those senior years of 11 and 12. So here's what your teen can expect and should be ready to look out for in their new year group, so that they're not only feeling cool and calm about what lies ahead, but can also really make the most of the opportunities that are going to present themselves to show their best work. Okay, so your teen's going into year 10. A couple of important things to look out for. One that's more obvious and one less so, and actually catches many students out, so be sure to keep watching for that one. First of all, things that won't change too much for your teen are the amount of homework and independent work they'll get set. It probably won't feel too different from what they had in year 9. It might increase a little, but it's not going to be any huge jump. And also the subjects that they're studying are likely pretty much the same as well, both in terms of the compulsory ones and their electives. But what that means is that the subject content and the standard of it is going to increase. That's the part that's going to change, because they'll be building on the foundations they laid in year 9 and earlier. So here's what that actually looks like. Your teen's going to be set more questions or tasks that have higher level commands built in. Now, command words, also known as cognitive verbs, and if you're not sure what I mean by those and that wording, then be sure to come to my upcoming Term 1 Parent Info event. I'll be emailing out details next week, so be sure to look out for that in your inboxes or on the Facebook page. Anyhow, in particular, they'll see analysis level questions a lot more this year. These either explicitly state analyze in the question, or they have it more subtly woven in by using phrases like explain how the author achieves or shows something, or discuss the effect of X, Y, or Z. Now these and many other wordings of questions, tasks, or assignments all require an analytical response, and so your team needs to be able to recognize when this is being asked and know how to analyze in detail, but also whilst avoiding that dreaded waffle. And finally, if your teen hasn't already been set any essays yet in year 9, then they'll likely get their first one in year 10. In fact, I'd be a little bit concerned if they didn't. So this means being clear on not only the basic structure, the intro, the 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion, and using a peel or teal structure within each paragraph. These are a given. So being able to construct an essay that actually flows and builds throughout, whilst also being focused on the command, not just the topic, is what's really going to differentiate in year 10 the okay to the good and the great results. And actually, not just making a difference to their grades, but also to how efficiently and confidently they're able to write that essay, as opposed to struggle through it for hours upon hours. Now, I train students in these elements in detail and much more in my Write Like an A-graded training. So go check that out if you think that could be useful for your teen. I'll put a link to it with this video. But for a quick and free tip right now, also check out my blog post, Write the Intro Last, where I explain the backwards solution to any essay struggles. So to sum up, not too much change in subjects and content, but rather a definite leveling up in terms of the standard of their writing and the depth of their understanding, most likely showing up as those higher level commands such as analyze, assess, and justify. I'm Katie Price, Grade Transformation Expert, and I really hope that information helps with any new school year nerves or butterflies and gives you some useful tips. So leave me a comment or drop me an email and let me know what's the thing your teen's most concerned about for the next school year, or the thing they're most looking forward to. And be sure to look out for my Term 1 parent information event coming up next week. It's totally free and has a new Netflix style twist for 2019. So here's to a super happy and successful year ahead, and until next week, let's make this a fantastic week.